We started working on food sovereignty about 2 years ago, and it was kind of a new term to us. It was something that we saw a lot of activity and excitement around, and we started learning about all the other work that tribes were doing, and looking at food sovereignty from just having healthy food systems. And part of that was food security. Do we have enough food? And then sovereignty, do we have access to healthy foods? And so we started our food sovereignty work by just doing a food sovereignty assessment. And it was funded through First Nations Development Institute. And we were excited. They provided a lot of technical support in getting our project off of the ground. And we did an assessment in our 3 counties for the Pomo tribes. And we focused on security because we figured if people didn't have enough money for food, if food wasn't lasting, then there wasn't much point to talking about access to healthy food, which in California and everywhere is pretty expensive, right? We started looking at what the issues were in our community. And there were about a third of the community that had food security issues. And so we started looking at how we could provide more access. And one of the issues that we found was that a lot of people didn't qualify for subsidies because of their income level. However, we also live in one of the most expensive places to live. So you have to have a high income, but it's mostly going towards your housing and you're not having enough for food. And then we also looked at what the challenges were to healthy food and traditional food. And we focused on trying to identify native food vendors so that we could increase access to healthy food. But we also had another problem. The rest of the world knows Pomo country, Pomo and Miwok country, as wine country. And our whole area is filled with vendors, and that's the $1 million crop. And now we're having another $1 million crop creep in, which is marijuana. We have lots of issues with that as well. So we also did a study on the wine industry and its impact on our traditional food systems at the same time. And what we'd like to see happen with that is having a dialogue and a conversation with wine industry folks about their impact and providing access. Some of the other issues that we identified were competition, and we talked about that in some of the other panels with commercial competition for things like abalone and seaweed. Access, privatization of land. We can go back to our unratified treaties in California, and had those treaties been ratified, we're talking 7.5 billion acres of land, where collectively now California tribes have less than 500,000 acres. So we don't have land, right? And that's an issue with cultural revitalization. If you don't have land, how do you revitalize language? How do you revitalize food, right? How do you grow cultural resources? Those are all challenges. So we started looking at access for harvesting. We started looking at climate change and its impact on our traditional food systems. And then from there, we decided to kind of move towards some programming. But we're also looking at land, and now that we've learned cultivation and stewardship, our youth group is trying to establish MOUs with different land trusts and private landowners so that we can go out and cultivate the resources. We are also working on food sovereignty leadership. So the kids worked on it's a mouthful, Youth Participatory Action Research Project. They did 1 year, and their focus was how do we integrate traditional foods into our modern lifestyles. And they worked with different Native chefs. They held a community dinner. They did surveys and research and just developed all their findings. They made videos on Native foods. And it's a statewide program, and out of the pilot programs that were funded, I think there were 12. Theirs was the only one that was offered a second year. So we're excited to keep doing that. And then we're embarking on a 3-year project right now, which is cultivating traditional food leaders. And we're going to do outreach with our Native youth in the community, hold Native youth food summits, and develop curriculum and work with tribal leaders, because food sovereignty doesn't always reach the top of the priority list. The issues that we see from not having food sovereignty are chronic diseases, things that happen over long periods of time. And so it's not seen, as an emergency or a crisis. And so we want to work with tribal leaders on educating them about the benefits of food sovereignty and the savings in terms of health costs and the nutritional benefits, and get them to realize that as we move forward, these are the types of ways we need to define sovereignty for the future.